earlier issues, that we in Birmingham are awfully good at defining and acknowledging the issues that confront us, but where we've fallen short is in the area of solutions. We've heard some of that tonight as well, so how do you see us moving past that?
I think some of that has been touched on. I mean, it's a matter of, it really gets down to a matter of loving Birmingham. I think if you don't love Birmingham, then I don't want to be part of your program. I mean, we have a great city. We have a lot of good things going on. And, we've sort of gotten to the point where, it used to be, you could say something bad about Birmingham and nobody would disagree with you. And now we have this enthusiasm. We have this optimism. I've been here for 33 years and I've never seen anything like the way it is right now. It's still sort of an unfocused optimism, I think, but we're beginning to actually feel good about ourselves. A friend of mine posted something on Facebook the other day, and I kind of half tongue-in-cheek made a negative comment. People jumped all over it, and it was great. I felt really good about that. And so, I think we've heard talk about working together. We've heard talk about the need to elect better people to public office. But what it really comes down to, I think, is the engagement of citizens. We have to make up our own minds that we want this place to be what it can be, to be better, to have better people representing us, to maybe run for something ourselves. We just have to step out and take some chances. You can't be great without taking risks. They need to be calculated risks, but you can't be, opportunity is purchased with the coin of risk. And we need to step up and be willing to do things that other cities have done. We have examples out there. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. But we need to be willing to step up and have citizens step up and take leadership roles. It's not, we can be critical of the business community. We can be critical of our elected officials. But it really does boil down to us as citizens, I think, to hold people accountable. To come out to events like this, to participate in elections. We had an election in the city of Birmingham a couple of months ago, right? 20% of the people voted. 20%. That's pathetic. There are people who would kill to vote. And there are people who died so that people who couldn't vote in this country for 100 years or more couldn't vote. And we get 20% turnout. So, let's celebrate the good things, but let's be willing to take a long look in the mirror and see what we can do as individuals, as a community, to really attack these issues that have held our city and our community back for so long.
So those things kind of exist in contrast. You have all this energy. You say that you haven't seen this much energy and enthusiasm for Birmingham in over 30 years of living here, but yet we have a 20% turnout with an election. So is this unfocused optimism going to turn into anything? And how do we harness this energy to actually make it into some real, tangible, good changes for the community? And that's for all of you.
Well, government is critical. It's important, but it's not everything. And I think a lot of the enthusiasm you're seeing happening, the growing movement to bring life to neighborhoods and so like that is coming from this group of people, a certain really age group of folks that are just fired up about the city, and that's good. I mean, it doesn't have to have government to make it happen. I think that's, now government can hurt it. It can do stuff that screws it all up, for sure. But I think that we don't need to depend on that. Now, I do hope that some of that bubbles into good leadership. I think earlier Randall was saying, recruiting good people, is critical. Find good candidates to run for them. But not everybody's meant to run for office. I think that a lot of good things happen in the community because it bubbles out of entrepreneurialism and other, civic obsession. I call myself civically obsessed because I'm always doing other things. People need to do things like that, and it just spreads around.
Just want to echo a couple of things David and Mark said, and I'll start with Mark's comment. This whole idea of solutions. Part of it's mindset. I mentioned that earlier, but the notion of believing there are more solutions than there are problems in our community is a great place to start. It's not just something to say, but you have to believe that. Then the other part is benchmarking. When we study and look at other successful cities, Chicago, Atlanta, Charlotte, DC, cities of that nature and stature and what they do that works, there's a three-legged stool. There's not some 100% dependency on just government and elected officials. The other part of that stool is the business community actually working with government. And then the third part of that stool is, I would call it the civic community. That's the nonprofits, that's the churches, et cetera, et cetera. I agree with Mark's statement that this is the enthusiasm, but it's not only enthusiasm, the tangible part of it. This is the most I've seen government and business community actually work together. Just think if they could do a little bit more with an actual plan together. How much of BBA plans incorporates government in measurable, tangible marks? Here's what we're going to do in 2013. Here's what we're going to do in 2014, et cetera, et cetera. When you take that three-legged stool and you make the city of Birmingham sit on it, there's nothing the city can't do. We can be successful at anything we want.
And if there are any questions from the audience, Audrey will be around as well to take those. But while we're waiting for y'all to join the discussion, another question we've been hearing a lot from the previous two panels about us collaborating, working together, government, all these different organizations, and there is more of that. But what are some of the challenges that y'all see that still exist to really breaking down some of these walls where we can more effectively work together in ways that we haven't before?
I'll tell you where we're missing the opportunity of a lifetime is the 2059 project. This is something that's going to affect our city for the next 50 years. It was a mistake when it was built for where it was built 40 years ago. And we're about to allow ALDOT to run over us and make it an even bigger mistake. Can anybody tell me who has been a leader in this project? In the opposition to this project? Anybody?
Mark Kelly.
I've heard that.
Well, look, I'm just a writer. The business community is nowhere on this. They've been talking to ALDOT in private. They've been sold on City Hall. The mayor has made some fits and starts toward leadership on this, but I sure don't see any result of it. I know there are plans. I know there's been an economic impact study commission. And I'm in a meeting at ALDOT headquarters yesterday with the county legislative delegation, and basically the message from ALDOT is, well, we can't do anything other than what we're going to do. Now, maybe there's some truth in that. Certainly, I was delayed getting to the meeting because I couldn't get on the interstate all the way because a chunk of it had fallen out of the chunk of the overpass had fallen out. So when they say this thing needs to be taken care of now, I buy that. But we need to be thinking farther down the road, and all of this is the product of years of bad policy, years of no vision about things that can impact the community for the long term. So the walls that need to come down are those kind of walls. We need leaders who have some vision. And I'm talking about in business, I'm talking about in government, I'm talking about amongst citizens. And the only leadership I see on this has come from the grassroots level, and it's hard to lead from the grassroots level. You can sure support, but you need a political champion. You need a champion from the business community, and that has been completely absent.
Do you have a question?
Hey, Tom, tell us your name and where you're from, please. My name is Rose Prince. I'm from the South Side area of Birmingham. This question is concerning an article that Mark recently wrote with Wells Magazine. It's called Different Trajectories, talking about the mayor of Richmond, Virginia, and how the population and the economic disparities in Richmond are so similar to Birmingham. You listed an anti-poverty initiative that he started. Some of the things you listed in your article was a mentorship program, a farm-to-school program to help with health and food services, doing away with public housing and starting mixed income areas. how possible do you think such an initiative in Birmingham is, and what needs to happen to make that possible?
I think that a lot of those things are happening in Birmingham, but the tendency here has been for good things to happen in silos, and there's no synergy, there's no communication, there's no overarching vision to it. And that too gets back to leadership. What if we had a mayor who said, you know what, in 4 years we're going to be the city that reads. We're going to attack illiteracy. We're going to attack poverty. We haven't had. We rely on Band-Aids. And, do I think that good things are happening here in most, if not all of those areas? Yeah, but there's no effort to really tie it together into a cohesive policy or a cohesive set of initiatives that really make a difference and a measurable difference. Randall hit the nail on the head, benchmarking. Where are we now? Where do we want to be? How do we get there? And we need to measure it every step of the way. If you can measure it, then you can attack a problem and you can beat it. But you have to be willing to measure it. And you have to be willing to get some bad news and think that it might get worse before you get some good news and not give up on it.
Audrey?
We've got 2 questions here and one in the back.
Hi, I'm Laura Pace. I am a student at UAB, and I'm the president of the American Marketing Association at UAB. And first of all, Mark, I just want to tell you I look forward to reading your poem every week. I love Weld Magazine, so thank you so much. And one issue that I'm really passionate about is sustainability. And the American Marketing Association at UAB, we are in honor and recognition of the 50 years forward. We are looking 50 years forward, and we are going to do a time capsule at school, and we are really focusing on Earth Day this year, and sustainability is a huge issue and factor in that. And on the list of priorities for Birmingham, how high is sustainability, and do you think that this is something that the Birmingham Business Alliance, is this something that we should really push? And if so, what is our time frame?
Well, first of all, let me just say, I'm just glad to be sitting next to Mark Kelly. Sustainability is something that's certainly been growing here, and you've got a lot of us that really support the idea of sustainability because it's, I think, recycling and building at so many levels, not just recycling the paper, but recycling your neighborhoods, your community, that whole idea is very strong and very powerful. But again, you run into sometimes those opposing forces that are unfortunate, and the issues of the sort of environmental front versus some, I'm not going to label the whole business community, but some that really get into big, huge fights over that, and it's brutal. You do not want to get in the middle of it, or in between them. And we recently, the city did recently pass its comprehensive plan. First time we've had one in 50 years now, or something like that, I think. And there's a lot of discussion there about being sustainable and green systems and all that. And 11th hour, boy, we had a real challenge because of people that were concerned about language of this and language of that, and all. Some of it was legitimate. But at the same time, it can become very brutal. So in a big picture situation, sustainability has its factions that are on either extreme, and those of us that end up trying to pull things in the middle, which is where I think most of us really live, get brutalized by those extremes on either side, and it makes it hard to really advance the issue of sustainability, I think, to the degree that we could here. Even industry, I think back, one of my first jobs, I worked at Sloss Furnace as the museum, when I was in college. And I learned about Sloss, that whole industry. It was this huge system, the way that thing worked, that recycled, even within it. You had water and everything that flowed back and forth that kept the whole thing going. This whole city, even though we think it was business and industry, the whole system has always sort of had a kind of a sustainability thing to it. We never really recognized it. And I think that we could really build that thing, but we've got to get past these extremes and see that they got to shoot each other because one side is trying to take away from me or stop me or whatever.
If you'll tell us your name and where you're from.
Yes, I'm Joseph Baker, and I believe in Birmingham, so it's where I make my home. I was going to bring up this issue earlier with Randall and Sandra and Tony, but you know, one of the things that I think seriously holds back this region is the let's call it the unmitigated hatred that our state government has for this region, and it is historic, and it is profound, and it is tangible, and it has historic evidence. When are we going to get organized to the point where we tell them to take their puppeteer's hand out of our backside and give us some home rules so that we can solve our own issues without their interference?
I'll try to answer that.
I want a solution now.
So I'll be super honest with this. If the election was today for the 2014 state representatives and state senators for Jefferson County, every single incumbent will win. That election is technically 6 months from now. I don't see that changing. It's possible in 2018 that those we want to send to Montgomery via our Jefferson County delegation to represent us and tell them we demand home rule. We want home rule that they want to actually fight, advocate, and leverage resources for Jefferson County. We have to find them, recruit them, and send them to Montgomery. That window exists in 2018, but that's something that requires a written, detailed plan that you have to start on no later than 2015. You probably don't like that answer.
No, I think that's a very realistic answer.
Is that something you see as being a possibility, getting that together in time?
Absolutely. It's just, what is that, 4.5 years from now?
Yeah.
4 years from now? Very tangible, very realistic.
Audrey, another one.
My name is Heather Backlav. I'm a new face in Birmingham. I just moved here this summer. I'm from Northeast Ohio, so I've become passionate about Birmingham since the first day that I entered this city, and that's because of the group of people who I met here. But my question is, what do we do and how do we appeal to people like me? Young business people who want to support the city but really have no reason to stay here. How do we attract and retain the younger generations who are not from Birmingham?
Why don't you have a reason to stay here?
I don't have family here. I'm not from Birmingham. I'm here for my job and my church and my boyfriend. But I have
So when I look at, I'll take 2 cities that I consider they attract young people. That's Atlanta and that's the District of Columbia. Part of it is rooted in the whole idea of you have options as it relates to employment. Whatever your major is, whatever your passion is, from an employment standpoint, you can find it in either one of those cities. And I would say the other thing is when you get to that city, you have like-minded individuals. I came home from college 10 years ago. The worst part about it was I didn't feel like coming back home. There were other like-minded individuals who were ready to embrace Birmingham, rip off the old scab and old way of thinking, and just embrace a new way of doing things. When I look at Sanford University, Birmingham Southern, Miles College, and UAB, I see what you see. You finish your program, and what job opportunity do you have? What other like-minded people are staying? And if neither exists, you leave. So, not just the challenge to the people on this panel, but to our elected officials, to our business community, we have to attract and retain you, but you have to offer something. And in my opinion, part of our plan, whether it's BDA, whether it's our comprehensive plan, as far as housing, as far as tracking industry, in this case it would be healthcare, what are we offering for young people?
Well, and there's a lot here. You know, I've said for a long time, Birmingham is a great place to live. It's been a great place to live for a long time. We're just not a great city. And we're working on that, and I think we're getting there. You know, I mean, part of my job as the publisher of a newspaper is to, you know, point out the good and the bad and the ugly, and you know, hopefully in a way that gives people some reason to think that we can move this community forward. I think if we had a newspaper in Birmingham that had done that prior to the last 2 years, we'd be a lot farther along than we are, but we've never had that. We've never had the leadership, excuse me, from the business community that other communities have had. You know, on the newspaper thing for a minute, you know, how did Atlanta get to be the city too busy to hate, and Birmingham got to be the most segregated city in America? You know, we were the same size in 1950, roughly. There were 5,000 more people in Atlanta in 1950. 20 years later, they're the city too busy to hate, and we're still the most segregated city in America. And then 40 years after that, you know, we're beginning to embrace our history a little bit. A lot of that had to do with the feeling in the community. A lot of that had to do with the newspaper. You had a guy named Ralph McGill, who ran the Atlanta Constitution at the time, who helped not only to, he didn't just report the news, they didn't just you know, give you information, they helped articulate and define and move forward a vision for the community. So I think, you know, there's maybe 4 legs to that stool. You know, you've got citizens, you've got business, you know, you've got government, and I think you've got you've got the media, which, you know, that's the 4th branch of government, and God help us.
So, I do think that, you know, what technology has given us today with social media is helping a lot, because you got a lot of people that can have conversations going in the community now that aren't dependent on those institutional media things to fuel that. You know, we had at the end of our month that we did the Revive program at Rev. Last week I showed a 4-minute video to my board of pictures from, you know, around the community, Ensley and downtown and Woodlawn, all the places where we focused on the Revive effort. Not one of those pictures we took. We took all of those pictures off of social media that other people had when they were out and around. They snapped them, Instagrammed them, did all this other kind of stuff. And it really fueled the whole thing. You know, that's what fueled the whole thing. And that's exciting to me.
Rachel, we've got one question back here.
Okay, sure.
I'm John Hauser, recently from Indianapolis. I actually just closed on our home press book today, though. Justifiably, throughout this evening, we focused a lot on the problems of Birmingham and solutions for them. But when I was moving here, the thing that really would get me excited when I was thinking about moving here was thinking about the assets of the community. So I want to ask the panel, what do you recognize as some of the greatest assets that Birmingham has to provide, and how can we better exploit them?
I'll give one. Our food culture. Our food culture. We should be excited about it, and we should promote it, and we should continue to exploit it for all the good things it offers, not just for that meal, but for what it can actually bring to the community. Not just, there's a business side of that, but then there's also this push for healthy living and healthy eating. You can take that, not just attract outsiders, but attract it to the people that actually live within the city limits, particularly in these food desert areas such as North Birmingham area. That's just one example.
I'd say people. We got great people. You know, I mean, it's not just being friendly and hospitable and all that good stuff, although that's nice too. But you know, people here changed the world, you know, 50 years ago. You know, and you know, that should create, to me, I mean, a sense of power. You know, if we can do something from the grassroots level about 2059, if we can elect people like Randall to the Board of Education, if we can take that forward in the next election and get more good people on the Board of Education, we get we get better people on the city council. And we've got some good people on the city council, but we can also do better. I think we could do better there at the top too, right? So, you know, we need to, if we can start to accomplish some things as citizens, as a community, the more you accomplish, the more you want to accomplish, the more you realize how much is within your grasp. And I think that we are at that moment in Birmingham where if we can make some things happen on the community level, there's going to be no stopping us. But I think we're also, you know, we could go either way. You know, we've got good things going on. We don't want to backslide. So that gets back to keeping people engaged and motivated. And how do you do that? And I just think we got to keep doing what we're doing and bring more focus and more vision to it. But people are our asset.
I appreciate you asking about the positives and assets. I mean, I think and I can start ticking them off. I mean, I love the geography of the region. I love the historic character that remains here in the city, and we have an urban core that still feels like an urban core, even though we may not always appreciate that the way that we should. You know, the people and all that are fantastic. There's a quality of life here that people just understand when they get here, you know, and realize, my gosh, this is, you know, still a very accessible place and good quality of life. My wife's from Atlanta, and I was over there visiting her parents this past weekend, and they had moved to Atlanta in 1969, I think, like so many people were doing. And they had found the guidebook that they bought when they moved to Atlanta that said, you know, welcome to Atlanta. There's this book of all the, you know, great restaurants, you know, the thing you're supposed to eat at, and, you know, the jobs and where you're supposed to go and all that kind of stuff. I noticed that the population of Atlanta, it said in 1969, at that moment, was 1.2 million people. What does that sound like? Birmingham now is 1.2 million people. And they say all the time when they come to Birmingham, say, gosh, you know, Birmingham sure feels like Atlanta did when we first moved there. Well, now I realize, well, it's the same size, you know. And they liked it better, they kind of liked it better, you know, that way. So I don't think the goal is to be, oh, we need to be a 6 million people metro area and all that kind of stuff. We just, you know, we've got so many assets. We just need to enjoy it more and build off more and be proud of it.
Yeah. Be in the moment. It's a great moment. We just need to keep
I think we have time for one or two more. Audrey, do you?
My name is Anastasia Tharp. I grew up in Hoover, Alabama. I've now lived in the state for 20 years. And to address the women from Ohio, how do you see people who grew up here wanting to continue to live here? Because I come back to weddings and, unfortunately, this time funerals, and I love to see Birmingham progress in the way that it has. Superficially, the city looks wonderful. Regent's Park and everything looks amazing. I question this being the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Movement. How has Birmingham really progressed as far as we've touched on the issues of me growing up in Hoover and over the mountain communities, really banding together with the rest of Birmingham and Jefferson County and addressing the issues that we don't see. We don't even know. I didn't even know about northern Birmingham growing up here. And so as a Birminghamian, would like for us to value the fact that we're all here and this is all our huge community, and I hope that things change because it needs to be done. I don't like hearing excuses. I want to hear solutions. And I hear a lot of excuses with the way that it's always been. Alabama's slow to change. Speaking for the gentleman earlier, saying that we're a young community and we want to see more action. Gentlemen.
I was kind of strange growing up. When I grew up, I lived in Bessemer, Alabama, which is the suburb of the West. But my dad taught at Vestavia Hills High School, so I could go to Vestavia to school. So I would travel before 459 was finished, all the way, you know, over to Vestavia to go to school every day. And so I did not appreciate it then, but now I really appreciate the fact that I lived in Bessemer, which is very different from Vestavia. But I went to Vestavia schools, and the people that I graduated with were people like, Brandon Falls, the VA now, and Senator Shelby's chief of staff in my class, and some CEOs, you know. But yet I saw every day at home, a different community. And now I ended up still loving Birmingham, stayed here, go to Sanford, and just that's another thing that made me weird. I guess most of my generation were ready to get out and go somewhere else. But I loved it, stayed here, and I think that has definitely changed now. And I think that one of the keys is we do need to figure out how to keep people out of staying locked in their silos, the Vestavia silo, the Mountain Brook silo, the Homewood silo, the Birmingham Investment silo, and realize that there is more to the city than just that little silo that they grew up in and always interact in. Figuring out how to get people moving back and forth across those silos, I think, is really important for the city's health going forward. I don't know if anybody's read Tanner Colby's book. Some of my best friends are black. It came out last year. He was a Vestavia grad. Went to New York and realized, when he was cheering on President Obama's election, that, for some reason, even on this white progressive liberal that lives in Manhattan now, I don't have any black friends. Why is that? And he started thinking about that and exploring that issue. And he wrote this whole 1/4 of the book. He goes back to Vestavia Hills and he talks about integration and busing and all the failures and all that kind of stuff. But the point of hope that he saw was when he went to a Vestavia Hills basketball game a couple of years ago to the high school. And he walked in and he saw the big, rebel colonel and, the Confederate and whatever. But he saw initially what he expected to see, which was here's the stands and here's the African American group sitting there, which would be separate from the whites, which is when he was in high school the same time I was. And so that's sort of how things were. We were separate. But then he realized those were the parents. And when you look at the kids, it was all integrated. Black, white, everybody sitting. There was no black section of kids, white section of kids. And there was the hope that generations, we just have to move on and get to the point where everybody knows how to relate better, and I think that's happening among the generation.
I think that's happening. I think, you look at people below, I'm going to pick a number almost at random and say 35, it's still a lot younger than I am, in the city, and man, they don't have baggage. It's great. That's where a lot of this enthusiasm is coming from. And if we can keep those people plugged in, and if we can keep the attitude just continuing to sort of build on itself, then we're going to be fine. I was really fortunate. I got to be a friend of Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth's late in his life, and to spend a good bit of time with him. And, he loved Birmingham. He would say that on his own. I love Birmingham. Whenever he came back here, he'd say, the criminal always returns to the scene of the crime. but he talked about how much he loved Birmingham. And once he said, if you don't think Birmingham is a better city now than it was 50 years ago, you're an ostrich. You're just not going to. I came here 33 years ago to go to school. Birmingham is so much better of a city now than it was then. It's a better city than it was 20 years ago. It's a better city than it was 10 years ago. It's a better city than it was 5 years ago. We're moving in the right direction. We have to be able to stop and appreciate where we are, I think. And we don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much, and we want to be able to challenge ourselves and understand what the problems are. But, we got a lot going for us. We just need to keep it going.
I just want to quickly, Rachel, answer her question.
All right.
Quality of life is usually rooted in two things: schools and home value, your neighborhood. I think in order to attract and retain young people, Birminghamians, it's not leading. Those two things have to improve, regardless of race. When you see the trend of what's going on in the nation, more people are wanting to move to urban cores, inner cities. Birmingham has to figure out a way, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to be a part of the Birmingham Board of Education. You have to fix public education. If we can move the needle on public education and figure out a way from a community development standpoint to do what we've done in South Avondale, Crestwood North, Crestwood South, what's trending in Woodlawn, keep moving towards East Lake, back to Southeast Lake, South Roebuck, come in city center, keep going north. I believe that that's part of, or one of the ways we can retain.
I agree with you. Having gone to Hoover and friends when the state in Alphabet, and how do you qualify that against the rest of Birmingham City public school system? So that's what I'm trying to say. There's such a dichotomy in Birmingham, and I hope that we reach that point where it's not so,
You got to dig in and go.
I agree.
You know, I mean, the best schools in the Birmingham system are as good as any schools in the state.
Absolutely.
There just aren't enough of them. You know, and what are we here talking about? Now, what's the topic? Leadership? Well, you know, we got some leadership, and we need more of it. And you know what David is doing, that's leadership. You know, I mean, and that's what it's going to take. And it's you know, it's not going to come from people who've been doing what they've been doing for 30 years and getting the same result. You know, I mean, it's time for some new blood, and I think we're getting that, and I think that's the key to moving forward.
And I think we have time for one.
Hi, my name is Melissa Scott, and I'm also a executive president, and so happy to hear somebody shout out my name tonight. And just kind of in summation, I think that one thing that really challenges Birmingham is a lack of identity. You know, we're really excited right now. We have that unfocused optimism, and we're not really sure what we're excited about. As opposed to cities sort of regionally like Nashville, Atlanta, Charlotte that do have a clear civic identity. And I think that what kind of challenges us on the national stage is we don't know what we have to offer young professionals, the creative class, to encourage them to come to Birmingham beyond images that existed 50 years ago, or what they read about in the New York Times is also sort of vague. So I guess my question would be, how would you define Birmingham's current identity, and how do you see that evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
Mark can answer that.
Well, you know, you hit the nail on the head. We never really had a civic identity. We let other people define that for us. We became the most segregated city in America. That's a hard one to shake on. You know,
Well, the Pittsburgh of the South.
the Pittsburgh of the South. That's right. That's it. Birmingham. Yeah. So we've never. I think that gets back to leadership too. We've never had a shared vision of what we want to be as a community, and I think maybe that's what all this is about. Maybe we're coming to that. You know, people want it, and so, you know, I don't know what I say, or maybe we want to be the city that reads. That'd be a great way to overcome some of that. You know, there's just so much here that we can build on, and I agree that you know, we need to come to some kind of shared vision that can. I don't know if it has to be defined in an advertising slogan, you know, but I don't know, city too busy to hate is pretty good for Atlanta. So I think we've got a good thing going. I've said that about 6 times. We've got a good thing going, and
I think we need a primetime soap opera named Birmingham. Nashville has, you know. Just kidding. You know.
Is that true? Is that right?
That actually is true.
Wow.
They are the city that reads. Well,
I don't get out enough.
Do you have any more? We're over time now. Any quick closing comments before we go? And thank you again to everyone who has participated, y'all on the panel and all of our other panelists today.
I just want to say thank you for allowing me to, I guess, engage you all. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for coming. We've been talking with Randall Woodfin from the Birmingham Board of Education, Mark Kelly from Weld, and again, David Fleming from Red Birmingham. Scott, did you have anything? And I'm Rachel Lindley, your news director at WBHM, and here's our general manager, Scott Henning. Again, thanks everyone for coming.
And thank you to Rachel, her 2nd month in now in Birmingham, and also you're in the Crestwood area yourself, yeah. So. We this is just the beginning of the conversations, and I was serious when I said you've been having good conversations. How many of you have had a conversation tonight with someone you never knew before? Please get their names and information, Facebook, everything else. Part of what communication among people who lead is about is connecting. And it's something WBHM is going to be working on more vigilantly to make sure we stay connected with each other, that you connect with one another, and that we as a community can go together wherever it is we're going to go. So we thank you for tonight for starting another conversation that will end never. So thanks very much. Drive home, take care.
It will end never. Yeah.